Welcome to Society and Culture in Provincial America. This is Melinda Klein. The colonies grew rapidly after 1700. Economic development brought handsome gains to some, opened modest opportunities for many, but produced disappointment for the unfree, illiterate, indentured, and farmers out on the Indian frontiers with little access to religion, education, and politics. Then, by the 1720s, evangelical principles swept through the colonies, offering many hope for salvation that was denied them under Puritan and Anglican principles. Colonial growth and economic development gradually transformed 18th century British America. Three variations of colonial societies emerged: the farming society of the North, the plantation society of the South, and the urban society of the seaboard commercial towns. By the 18th century, the Caribbean now had become important to colonizing nations as sources of wealth and riches. This would reach a climax in the second half of the 18th century. It would also be a source of the spread of diseases with the much wanted trade and commercial activities from areas near and far. Growth of an affluent middle-class society and the Age of Enlightenment are inseparable. The 18th century discovers the individual. The American colonists adopt the manners of the genteel English. An upper elite class appears in America. Colonialists establish libraries in all their cities: Boston, Philadelphia, and Charleston. Elite classes in the colonies imported books from Europe. Harvard was founded in 1636, Yale in 1701. The colonial elite read the same books as the Europeans. Philosophical Enlightenment books were written and imported from France and England. The Enlightenment rejected old ideas, religious, political, and ethical, in favor of new ideas based on reason, individual rights, and an optimistic view of the future. These influences led to the American Revolution in 1776. And then to the French Revolution in 1789. In the 17th century, a respectable woman knew that her place was within the family. Her status and class standing came from the family's background and the man she was married to. It was a part of the larger conception of God's design that assigned degrees of status and the stations in life to all individuals. In that world, women were subordinate, taught from infancy to be modest, patient, and compliant. Regarded by men as weak of mind and large of heart, they existed for and through men, subject first to their fathers and then to their husbands. European women and their colonial sisters usually accepted these roles. Few complained, at least openly, that their work was generally limited to keeping up the domestic duties around the home and birthing babies. Disease has long been recognized as playing a tragic role in the history of the Americas, spreading sickness and death with the interaction and commerce of foreign cultures. Epidemics visited the colonies in North America on a regular basis. Few, but some, medical advances had been made during the colonial period. Standard treatments in healing patients included the following: bleeding, vomiting, blistering, and purging in efforts to rid the body of what ailed it. It was no accident that in the 18th century, inoculation would be a practice in Western Europe and more so in colonial British America, the age of rationalization and experimentation. While early inoculation protected the upper classes, Negroes and indentured servants were vaccinated in the colonies. A serious outbreak of smallpox in Boston in 1721 afforded the first opportunity for testing this new preventative. When the disease hit again in 1730, 400 persons received vaccinations. By 1750, vaccinations were given at uneven rates in all of the colonies. By 1760, a local newspaper in Charleston boasted 1,500 vaccinations offered in one day. By the end of the century, the procedure of inoculation was well standardized and doctors were skilled in applying it. Although colonial society did not encourage or reward female individuality, women worked alongside their husbands in the pre-industrial colonies, contributing to the family economy. Women had limited choices as far as careers, but broad responsibilities. From keeping the books for a household or family business, to birthing calves, children, smoking meat, making candles, soap, butter, and cheese. In bad times, she helped the needy, nursed the sick, and helped men too. The Great Awakening started in the 1730s and had a 10-year run. With religious piety in decline, touring evangelicals such as George Whitefield performed open-air sermons to huge crowds. While Whitefield was not classically trained as a minister or a university graduate, he advocated that it was possible for everyone to have a relationship with God, and they did not need the leaders in their community, or was that it necessary to read the Bible. Itinerant preachers, past and present, are very appealing to people who cannot identify with the structure of organized religion. Puritan and Anglican ministers were up in arms, as you might imagine, over this controversial firestorm that had hit the colonies. As illustrated here, seaport towns were diverse. The Big Five were New York, Philadelphia, Charleston, Boston, and Newport, Rhode Island, claiming a middle class engaged in management of import and exports, a working class, and to some degree slaves. The 7 Years' War, also known as the French and Indian War, was a war in which Britain and France battled out not only in North America, but around the world wherever their colonies happened to be. This war had two phases, 1754 to 1758, in which the French were very successful with guerrilla warfare, and then 1758 to 1760, in which Anglo-American forces prevailed over the French. William Pitt becomes Minister of War in England. The last setback in North America for the British was the fall of Fort William Henry to the French. Ultimately, the French would lose this war in North America with the conquest of Quebec. This was, in all means, a world war for the British and the French. All the while, the legacy to North America produced colonial unity and created a frontier militia. The Treaty of Paris of 1763, ending the 7 Years' War between the British and the French, also ended the first French colonial empire in North America. However, the French remained influential in certain areas, such as New Orleans. However, they would lose their territories north of the St. Lawrence Seaway, and Native Americans who had sided with the French would mourn the loss of this alliance.